Welcome to the Iconic Wealth for Women mini-series. In the first episode, we talked about building wealth after 40. Is it really too late? In this section, we're going to dive a bit deeper into some of the strategies that these incredible women have used to build their wealth. Now, we know that we've heard all these turnaround stories from being homeless, from being a single mum, from being in debt to now over 20 million. So we've turned these stories around, but obviously what we haven't really dived in is the strategies that you took to actually get you there. Because we know that financial freedom isn't just about overcoming setbacks, it's about knowing how to grow, how to sustain, what types of wealth vehicles are out there. And a lot of people think that obviously the only way to build wealth is to work 9 to 5, but we all know that it's actually not a way to build wealth. It's simply not true. And especially in today's age, we know that even people in 9 to 5 jobs have probably additional income streams. They're looking for additional revenue. So let's break down some different wealth building strategies we've used. So Lisa, your expertise is obviously building businesses online, is taking your existing knowledge and skills and turning how to do it. Kind of what took you down that path in relation to that particular wealth vehicle?
Yeah.
And why do you recommend it, I guess?
Do you know why I recommend it? I recommend it because it doesn't matter who you are. You have knowledge of something.
Yep.
So most people think that when they're making passive income from the knowledge in their head, what they're actually doing is thinking of business ideas, but it doesn't have to be anything to do with business. So I work with around 6,000 people a year, and they come up with passive income streams like courses, workshops, memberships, group programs, all sorts of things in all sorts of different industries. So for instance,
you want to be weirdest, yeah.
Weirdest.
Well, weirdest or like out there.
Subscription box for chickens.
Subscription box for chickens. No way.
Okay, you win that.
Yeah, that was definitely.
I have someone that's made millions from talking about a membership for people that like the theatre. I have somebody that teaches other people how to cut flowers. Like dating, sex, Caribbean cooking. It doesn't matter what, potty training, bringing up twins, going through a divorce amicably. It really doesn't matter. You will always have knowledge that someone else knows. If someone says to you, oh, can I just have a coffee and pick your brains? That means you've got something you can sell.
Yeah.
And so even like I speak to mums who are on maternity leave, I speak to 70-year-olds who are retired, they just want a passive income stream to come in. All we start with is get a piece of paper, write down everything you know, everything you've done. Pick one. You will make money from it because it's just a process that you have to go through. But I think people often think they need to be the best person in the world to do something, like the guru online.
Yeah.
And you don't. The definition of an expert is to know the most about a particular subject in an average room. Not the world.
No.
Like all of us have something that we know more. And what started me on this path was I actually bought a little ebook on a Facebook group, how to get around Disneyland with 2 under 2s. Because I don't know whether you've been, but it's like a military operation. It's awful. It's like you have to be there for work closing and then you have to go there. And I was like, this is a hassle. So I bought this little booklet and it was $10. And so I then rang the woman up and was like, do you sell a lot of this? This seems like a really weird thing you're doing. And she was like, I make $30,000 a month.
Oh my God.
Just from putting this one ebook that I wrote 6 years ago into all of these different Facebook groups. That was a light bulb for me. Create something once, make money from it over and over and over again. And so I started to do that just with like the basics of business. How do you start a business? I put something together and I put it out there. People bought it. You have to grow an audience first, but people bought it. And I was like, what else can I put out there? So started putting different things out there and people bought it. And I was like, this can't be this easy, but it is. It's just about people who are a little bit ahead of where you are, wanting to buy your knowledge, but don't think that knowledge has to be business. It can be how to use Instagram, but it doesn't have to be.
So what's the biggest barrier to entry into that sort of business?
The only barrier to entry is belief in yourself that you can do it. Because I did it with nothing. Most of my clients do it with nothing. They don't have the money to start, but you don't need money to start because you're literally putting something out there just from what's in here. So as long as you have the knowledge, I think the biggest barrier is probably people believing that everyone knows what they know. When actually your knowledge is not common knowledge. We just believe it is because we've known it for so long. We'll go, everyone doesn't need to know. Surely everyone knows how to do that. No, they don't. They don't know how to do that. They don't know how to curl their hair. They don't know how to put their bridal makeup on. They don't know, what to do if you are an expat in a certain country and the first things you need to know about living there. So many different things. Don't know how to start writing a book. There's a million things that people know how to do, but instead of just telling people, instead you sell it in a format that's easy for them to digest.
Brilliant. And yeah, we get into that, don't we? Because we always think the things that we do most naturally is the things that everyone else should know. Yeah, exactly.
But they don't know. That's what people ask you.
It's the Marie Kondo, isn't it? With the organising the wardrobes and things like that. You just think, well, everyone knows how to organise something, and it's just like, no, they don't. They don't. Love it. So Caroline, in relation to kind of what you've done, so you obviously have an online business as well in relation to that. You've used that as leverage, but you've got more into the kind of certification, obviously franchising and things like that. And I know you've got a big franchise as well. But how, why did you choose that? How did you get into that? Why should someone else consider that type of business?
I think my whole business revolves around my own experience, really, as well. Like Lisa was saying, the stuff that I've done and people then wanting to heal, then wanting to help others. So, okay, I'll create a certification and qualification, and then some of them not knowing how to build a business. And yes, I've leveraged social media a huge amount in building my business, particularly Facebook and Instagram, and using reels and video content too. It was basically teaching them exactly what I have done to build my business. So the franchise then, the mental wellbeing company, was really about those that really wanted to be great coaches in the space of helping people recover from trauma, but not knowing what to do. And I think particularly in the space around coaches, consultants, therapists, they go into it really wanting to help people, but they don't know how to build a business. They don't actually know what to do. So the franchise was very much then about teaching them, whether it be offline or online. Some people want to earn an extra £500 a month. Some people want to earn £10,000 a month. It's all possible, particularly if you leverage social media. So a lot of the training I give them is a lot around how to create a reel, even a faceless reel. And the beauty for me starting at that point was because when I initially started my business, I was still suffering really badly with anxiety. So to be able to use social media that is free and be consistent with that. And I think the key thing is consistency. Yeah. I would say since I started my business sort of 5.5 years ago, that I have not missed a day on Instagram or Facebook, not one. Wow. So when people look and see how many followers I've got, it's probably 500,000 across the platforms. It's like, oh, you're so lucky, you're this. Well, I have not missed a day, twice a day, and I've never missed a day in all Christmas Day, birth, never, never, never. So it hasn't just happened. But I know, again, we talk about the instant gratification like we talked about in the last part. It's you have to keep doing that. And I've seen time, there's a lady in my community literally followed everything to a T. She's got over 100,000 followers on Instagram now, and she's quit her job as a teacher being a trauma-informed coach and building that. So, for me, it's utilizing the tools, knowing what to do, but the key thing is you've got to be consistent with that. And if you're not consistent, a lot of the other stuff I teach is, why aren't you? Because that's the trauma piece a lot of the time then. What's blocking you, sabotaging you? So yes, you know what to do, but if you're not doing that, why not? What is your interpretation of this success of you building that business? And that's, a lot of the stuff that we do in the business.
Brilliant. And we all talk about success leading clues, don't we? Like we know that there are paths you can follow that you can actually, if you're modelling it or going through the process, the idea of working with people that have done it before is it speeds your process up. Correct. But again, you still have to be the one that instigates and does the work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And on social media, we all start with 0 followers. Yeah. Every single one of us starts with 0 followers. So when you see somebody who's got hundreds of thousands of followers, well, we all still started at 0. Yeah. And what we're doing is not rocket science. Anybody can do that. You've got to find a way.
Yeah, people will go, but you've got a big email list. I'm like, but I had no email list. We all start from 0.
They all think though, suddenly it's like, that
they only see you with where you are at now, and not the late nights, early mornings, or the working. So you do have to graft to start off with. You absolutely do, but then you get the benefits of that.
That's it. Then the instant gratification turns into long-term gratification, doesn't it? Because you've put the foundations in place. And so, Steph, you obviously got started. You've used the wealth vehicle around property. Yeah. So, kind of, what got you into that? Why property? And sort of, why should someone else consider property? I guess in that regard.
Yeah, I think in the UK, property is an asset class that most of us understand. It's quite basic. static, it's long lasting. It is a long-term play. But what I liked about the strategy that we went through, which is called rent to rent, the property management side, but it's a more nuanced version of rent to rent where you can, of property management, where you offer more services and you get paid more for each property. So you only need, say, most people want to have between 3 and 5 properties, and each property will earn between £500 and over £1,000 a month. And we do it in a way that's ethical, and that's a win-win-win, because otherwise you can't have a long-term business if you're ripping people off. And so we've got something that works for the property owners, for the housemates, and for us, and is a fantastic business model. But that's great for people who want to get started with little money and get cash flow going. And then for me, I love to buy properties as well. And you can use your cash flow, you can use your experience, you can leverage your connections, because you've then made connections with people in the industry. And that's so important to start buying properties. And the niche that we accidentally fell into, we were trying to buy share houses, 6-bedroom HMOs as they're called, and we kept missing out on all these properties, and we eventually started buying blocks of flats because we kept missing on these properties, and that worked out to be a much better a much better investment, because you've got less, you've got fewer buying costs, you've got fewer utility costs. Well, you can outsource the utilities to the housemates. You can split the bills. You got one roof, and all of those economies of scales. So I think property is a great asset class, and it works really well alongside the business sides of property, as well as the longer term wealth building sides of property. And I suppose the final element that we added to it was, as well, you don't want to buy another job. So you do want to be able to have a team to be able to run your property portfolio for you, manage it for you. So I think that's the final piece in the puzzle that makes it a really good asset class for people.
Brilliant. I love that. And I think that, obviously some of the combination of this is obviously creating cash flow to then potentially invest for long-term wealth, and doing that scenario. If I'm currently sitting maybe in a job or thinking like, I want to start a business, I've got these different wealth vehicles, how would I know maybe what's right for me? What could you do?
I think you look at your strengths.
Yep.
So if you know you're interested in certain things, like I know I'm interested in teaching. I love teaching people. I love showing people in a step-by-step way how to do something. So it's obvious that I should be doing that. Yep. Whereas some people, like, I'll tell you what, property scares me a bit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a bit scared of it. And I always have been a little bit scared of it. But some people are just naturally really good at just going, well, this makes complete sense to me. I'll buy this and I do this. And, you'll work out what your skills are. But I think the first thing to do is look at what you've already done. Because most of the time you can look at the experience that you've already had, look at what you've already done, and find a business that fits around that. Just because you were in a job that didn't pay you very much doesn't mean you didn't learn a lot from it. I have clients that was the salesperson, and now they're teaching people how to sell, and they're brilliant at it. I have people that worked in a call centre, and they're so good at the customer journey because they saw it and they saw what didn't work. So I think that look at what you already do. I've got lawyers that absolutely like the law, hated working as a solicitor, but love teaching people how they can use the law for their benefit without the high costs. Look at what you already know.
Love that. That's really powerful. So getting deep into relation to your skills. And I think people forget, I used to see this in property as well, where obviously I used to run a real estate office in London, but we'd have people come in and it's like, they just suddenly forget all their previous year's experience. So I'd talk to someone and they'd be like, what's your background? And they're like, oh, it's an engineer. I was like, I think a developer might be interested in having someone with engineering skills that's good at project management, that knows how to cost things up. And seems to be, it's really funny in property, you hear people go, oh, I'm starting in the property space. And you're like, but you've got all these transferable skill sets that apply to property. And I think that's really powerful, is picking up the transferable skill sets that you've done and then obviously putting them into business. What about you in relation to getting started or like choosing that particular type of wealth vehicle? So you've done it out of obviously an experience, like
yeah, definitely. I think it definitely became a purpose as such. But it's all very well having a purpose, but if you haven't got money to put food on the table. So it was kind of almost what Lisa was saying, marrying that experience, the purpose, what you want to do. Because really it doesn't feel like work then every day. It just feels like a bonus all of the time, and you get to help a lot of people. So very much for me, it was this sort of passion-driven business around domestic abuse, around trauma, our past experiences, and then creating really and a community is really important for me. So when they come and say do a certification or anything like that, it helps themselves not just earn money, but in their life too. And it's sort of really making a difference with all of that. And so for me, the sort of building of that, whether people want a small amount of income or a huge amount of income, it's giving them the space to be able to develop that whilst also feeling like they are making a difference in the world. And I think that was really important for me at the start, to think if I want to build a business, I need to be able to sit back when I'm cleaning my teeth at night, looking in the mirror thinking, I'm doing the best I can and I'm making a difference in the world. And that goes back to we're on this planet for a short period of time. What do you want to be known as? What do you want people to talk about you when they're in a room as such? What a difference you could make. So that drive inside of me isn't necessarily about the money. It's about making the difference. And the byproduct of that is you can create an amazing business on the back of all of that too. And that's pretty much all of my community. They've had some kind of traumatic experience or experienced domestic abuse, and they also want to go out and make a difference. And we're creating that ripple effect, or tidal effect, as I like to call it.
Oh, look at you going, just running up on the ripple, eh?
Yeah,
tidal wave. We want a tidal wave instead. Cheers for that one. Yeah. So in relation to that, I think the interesting thing around these is obviously mostly it starts with some sort of skill set, some sort of passion, or some sort of need in relation to kind of where you've chosen to go. So what if you're sitting there thinking, well, that feels risky? Like, obviously we hear this a lot with people wanting to get out of work, and then they go, oh no, it's too risky to leave my careers, or it's too risky to get started. How do we overcome that and take the first steps in relation to kind of what we're doing?
Overcome risk. I think that it's a really difficult thing to do because we're told not to be risky pretty much our whole lives as women.
Especially women,
Yeah. I think the only way you do it is to realise that if you take a risk and it doesn't work, nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the feeling of failure. So when we are born, we learn how to walk by failing.
Yeah.
We stand up, we fall. We stand up again, we fall. We don't care how many times we fail, we give it another go and then we fall. Yeah. Sometime between there and now, as adults, we think of failure as a bad thing, which I find bizarre. I've never thought of failure as bad. I've thought, okay, well, if I fail, I can then work out what I did wrong so the next time it can be even better. And I think that if we can get that mindset going of like failure is okay, like if you look at anyone that's done anything amazing, Dyson, Ford, any of them.
We're showing our age when we say that. Thinking Edison.
Even Stephen King, like his first book, like was rejected so many times. You've got to carry on.
Well, J.K. Rowling was as well, simply rejected for her books, and now look at them.
But you won't start taking risks if you're scared of failure.
Yeah. So how do you overcome scare of failure?
Again, I mean, for me, it would always go back to that nervous system doing that inner work. And I think what you said, Steph, earlier about when you were looking at your property business, that voice that was saying, I could always go back and get a job. And I think sometimes when we're looking at things, and I really used to be like this, if I do this, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, so I'll give it a go. And I was very much of that mindset a lot of the time too. So I think, anything in life, we're going to have to step out of our comfort zone. But it's creating that comfort zone when we step out that still feels safe enough for us to do that. And again, that goes back to, it might be smaller steps, but we have to have the grit to be able to to do that, because otherwise we're just going to stay where we are all of the time.
So we've got a lot of inner work going on. And I've always used that line. It's always I commonly say, what's the worst thing that can happen? It is, because when you actually think logically, most of the time, what's the worst thing that can happen? Even if you leave your job or you go and do something or you get started in something, what's the worst thing? I always go, well, I can always go back to a job. Worst case scenario.
I think many of us are really scared of judgment as well. That if we do fail, what will people say about us? And that goes back again what you were saying, Steph, earlier about that lack of worth. You know, people will see me for what I think I am. That I really am not good enough. I really am worthless. So again, we stay small because being small feels safer as such. And rather than put our head above the parapet where we're visible and people could be mean to us and horrible to us and all of those things, or troll or anything else like that. You know. But again, nothing good comes from staying small. No. Things don't happen. Things don't change. You know, sometimes we do have to step out. But
the thing is, you're being judged anyway, aren't you? Correct. No matter what you do, you're being judged on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Whereas we were judged for doing something good.
Yeah. I think the thing is that when you've been through struggle, you know you have grit.
Yeah.
You know you have it. You know you have the ability. You can look back and see what you've been through. You can look back and see what you survived. So when it comes now to how am I going to do this video on Instagram? Of course you're going to do that video on Instagram because that's nothing compared with what you've already
I think you're right. I think that most people I know who have made it successful have been through adversity of some kind. Yeah. Because if you hit an obstacle in starting a business or getting an asset class to make money, and you haven't been through anything, you're kind of like, okay, I tried, but it didn't really work out. Yeah. Whereas with people that have been through stuff, they're like, okay, how am I getting around it or under it or through it? But they don't really give up as easily.
No. Yeah, and I agree, because again, it's like you said, you're not going to keep pushing through, are you, if you've never experienced anything? But most of us have experienced something where we go, actually, that's got nothing on what we've dealt with or what we've been through.
And we're always looking for things to reinforce what our belief is about ourselves. So if we don't step out, well, I am not good enough then. Yeah. I am not worthy. I don't matter. I'm not important. So, you know, if we're looking for something to reinforce our belief about ourselves, let me tell you, you will find it. Yeah, true. So we do have to step outside a little bit and like you said earlier, Lisa, surround yourself with the right people so that you can see the possibilities and just, you know what, one step at a time. Sometimes even when I'm working on a trauma perspective, I say 1 hour at a time, just focus on that. Because if you're focusing on the summit of Mount Everest, which is where you want your business to be, you know, if I said to someone, go and climb Mount Everest, I'd be like, oh, I can't do that. Yeah. But if I said, go to base camp 1, I'd be like, okay, I could do that then. Yeah. So it's chunking it down to feel safe enough to be able to do those things, knowing you want to get there, but just one step at a time, one step at a time.
I love that. And I always say then it's the action you take to get there, because then it's the small steps, isn't it? We used to do that running sales teams, because obviously we used to get hit all of a sudden with obviously $1 million of targets, and then the guys would freak out and go, oh my God, how are we going to hit that again?
Everything can be
broken down. Exactly.
Well, you go into a survival response and then you do nothing. You're just in a freeze and you don't do anything. So you have to break it down.
Yeah. And then obviously then look at the actions, because the actions always lead to the outcome anyway if you take the right actions in the first place. Brilliant. I love that. I think we're coming up to our time on this segment. So we've obviously talked about different strategies. We know there's not one size fits all. It's obviously, like you said, find your inner strengths, find your experiences, find what you're really passionate about. But then obviously you have to build the foundations around it, because it's like you said, so many people come into a business with their passion, but then they don't learn the business skills that go with it. And you're going to have to build a business if you want that freedom or financial freedom, or you want time with your family. So in the next segment, we're going to be talking about resilience and challenges, because we know that obviously social media quite often portrays it. Everything looks really rosy and we've got these glossy profiles, but we want to get into a bit of the nit and grit in relation to kind of what it really takes to get you through in relation to your business.